Welcome back to Old School Tour Tales, where we take a ride back to a time when the road was wild and the music was loud. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Patti LaBelle and Diana Ross, two legendary performers, both found success as solo artists and as the lead singers of their respective groups, the Bluebells and the Supremes. Their paths had crossed before, but according to Patti LaBelle, tensions between the two began when their group shared the bill at the Apollo. Patti said that Diana would come into their dressing room to see what they were wearing. We would go to Walmart or Walgreens or one of those cheap stores and buy gold outfits. And so the next day, the day we wore them, the next day the Supremes had on the same gold things. They were biting my style. No, for real, biting big. But it looked like Patti and the Bluebells were the ones biting. For some reason, we were going on after the Supremes, which didn't make sense to me because they were the big stars. But of course, we only had that one gold outfit, and they had worn theirs already, and it looked like we were copying them. I wanted to pimp slap her. I wanted to beat her up. Things between Patti and Diana only got worse when one of the Bluebells decided to make a move. We were in Cleveland, ready to go on stage, and there were only 3 Patti LaBelle members. Cindy Birdsong had gone to take Florence Ballard's place with the Supremes. They had been rehearsing her for months, and that night she left us. She left us to go with the Supremes. She jumped ship big time. Patti would later acknowledge that her former bandmate ultimately found more success after leaving the group. However, she expressed disappointment in the way Diana handled the situation. After it all settled in my bones, I said, "Thank God, she's making more money with them than she was with me." So it was a blessing for her, but do it the right freaking way. And Diana, don't come stealing my chicks in the middle of the night. So she stole Cindy Birdsong from me. All I could do was bless her and say, "You know, I'm praying for you to climb," and then something happened. Then she's no longer with them. Diana left and left her without a bluebell or a paddle. Those things hurt me because they took her for the right reasons for them, but the wrong reason in the end. In the world of funk, there were few bigger than Rick James and Zapp. So when the two acts toured together, one would expect the funk and nothing but the funk, but a lot of other things happened. Rick James, while an amazing artist, wasn't always easy to work with. He had had problems on the road with Prince during his Fire It Up tour, and problems with Luther Vandross on his Street Songs tour. And Zapp was next on the list. Jannetta Boyce Warren of Zapp. One night during a concert in St. Louis, we were told by Larry, our manager, certain demands were being asked of us. He told us the promoter said Rick James was threatening to walk off the show if the promoter allowed us to use any of our stage props, such as Roger's lighted guitar, suit, or chair. Every single night while on this tour, there was some Rick James drama. This was the stipulation made clear in our contract. How dare them to make those stupid demands right before we are preparing to go on stage? Zapp refused to change their show, so Rick and his crew pulled the plugs, cutting off the stage lights, leaving them in the dark, and Rick would pull plugs again on the second night, but this time cutting off the sound. Zapp had previously toured with Prince on the Controversy tour, and he had told them that Rick had sabotaged his show during the Fire It Up tour. So while Rick was on stage a few nights later, Prince went into the crowd to take the attention away from him. So now, dealing with the same thing Prince had dealt with, Roger decided to do the same thing Prince had done. Roger stole a page from the book of Prince, and the next night he too went into the audience while Rick was on stage performing and signed autographs. Roger was so hyped about the stunt he pulled that his adrenaline was running way high. After the show, when we got to the parking lot to leave for the hotel, the tires had been slashed on all our vehicles. The next show was in Long Beach, California, and Rick and his entourage, crew, and band members blocked the hall to Zapp's dressing room. This stunt got the crowd all riled up and upset, thinking we didn't show up to perform. Like in the old Western movies, we stood backstage in a standoff, waiting for security and the police to have them move and let us by. We did not want to cause a riot, so we waited patiently, but as we waited, the tension got thicker. Rick and Roger stood face to face like Ali and Frazier. Behind Rick was his gang, and behind Roger were his troops, me included. Jannetta said Rick then paraded up and down the hall, waving a bottle of liquor, chanting and swearing for about an hour until bad Bobby Glover from Zapp had had enough and told Rick and his people to do what they were going to do. They did nothing, and so Bobby then stepped between them and went to the dressing room, and the other members of Zapp followed. Just like many other groups that encountered the wrath of Rick James, I felt it. Don't get me wrong, I love me some Rick James, and I was a big fan of Danny's, the saxophone player, and them horns. Rick was talented. Rick was the man. Nobody was writing lyrics like he was. He was on some another kind of good old funky music. He was truly the master of street songs with unheard of lyrics with that serious New York funk. At times, while on tour, we had to contend with other bands and their ego trips, but they were nothing compared to touring with Rick James. Jackie Wilson, known as Mr. Excitement, was one of, if not the greatest performer of all time, but he didn't always want to be a singer and dancer. He first went after a career in boxing and won the Golden Gloves at the age of 16, but decided to quit due to his mother's concerns. He left boxing, but the Reed Petite singer was still light on his feet, something that a New Orleans police officer found out in the early 60s. Chuck Jackson of the Dell Vikings. I was there when Larry Williams was performing, the police told us before we got there. Don't come off this stage, black boy. They had police lined up all around the stage. Larry Williams had his foot up on the piano like Little Richard. He was doing Dizzy Miss Lizzie, and he ran to the edge of the stage but didn't jump off. He got down on the edge of the stage and women came forward. White women. Jackie was standing backstage and the cops took Larry and pulled him into the audience and started beating him with their sticks. Jackie came from backstage like he was Johnny Weissmuller. He ran like he was Tarzan, and he leapt like he was leaping into a lake into the crowd of policemen. When he hit the floor, he was like a little rabbit. He went down on his knees, and when he came up like he does on stage, he hit this cop. A big red cop. He messed him up bad. Guitarist from the Midnighters, Billy Davis, also recalled what happened that night. Jackie jumped up and the big cop pushed him back. Then Jackie punched him out cold, and Jackie could punch like George Foreman for a little guy. The cop was 6'1", 225 pounds. Jackie was 150 pounds and 5'9". We were all locked up, but only for a few hours. That's all for this one, but if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join us next time.